Help support this channel and get early access to videos plus exclusive content and patrons-only live discussions by becoming a member at patreon.com/BrucePoinsett. Welcome back to the Working Artist Working Title Project. I'm your host, Bruce Poinsett, and on today's episode, I speak with Vaughn Kimmons. Vaughn is a multidisciplinary artist born and raised in Chicago, currently residing in Portland, and she uses a number of mediums, including music, production design, digital collage, wardrobe styling and design, and dance to celebrate Blackness as the cosmic source of sacred inspiration and give voice to the connective power of shared human nuance. We had a great conversation about just the process of one, making art, but then two, the economics that dictate a lot of our decisions and her evolution as an artist. So I think you're going to enjoy it. Check it out. Vaughn, thank you again for taking the time today. How are you doing this Monday? That's what it is. I'm sorry, I'm in COVID recovery, so I'm in like a state of like euphoria while also still confused about where the world is. But
Like, oh, euphoria. I haven't heard anybody use that word for coming out of COVID. Yeah, this is Monday. It's overcast. It was a little sunny earlier. I'm good. I'm like in a state of transition, transitioning into uh, putting more of my art out and not necessarily supporting other people or putting things out like as a duo or as a group. I'm transitioning
Mhm.
into that. And so I have some growing pains. That's where I'm at right now. Very introspective and yeah, growing pains.
Yeah, I mean, and you wear a lot of hats, as a multidisciplinary artist. I think my entry is through Brown Calculus and
Yes.
seeing you all perform. And I don't know how many times also because I know you all do a lot of like collaborations with the Abiotos, who are like like my favorite family. So
I know,
okay,
same. They're my favorite family too. So I think we can all vote on that as a town that the Abiotos are our favorite family.
right. But speaking of which, we're talking about this a little bit offline. That you actually did an interview with the first person I interviewed for this Working Artist Working Title project, Isabel Walker, and during that interview, you said a number of things that kind of like caught my eye. But one of the things that came out there is you actually went to school to be a nutritionist.
Oh, yes. So I'm originally from Chicago and I moved to Portland in 2013. And I really just wanted a new place to live. And so I was starting to get into nutrition because I changed my eating habits. Like I wanted to be healthier. And so when I decided to move out here, I needed a thing to do. I didn't want to move and not have a grounding thing, like a focus. So I was like, great, I'm going to move and I'm into nutrition. So let me go to nutrition school. So yeah, I went to the Wellspring School for the Healing Arts, which I don't even think it exists anymore. But yes, I am a certified nutritionist, but I don't practice.
Hmm. I mean,
I
does
know.
it? I guess does it? I don't know, because as like a I guess as a trained journalist, a lot of my stuff is in like media, but it's not necessarily journalism, But
Yes.
I don't know if that works the same way as a nutritionist, if any of that info or practice shows up in your work otherwise.
You know what shows up more than like, because I mean, I used to give out, even before I moved here, I used to get like, people always be hitting me up for like health advice and all this, but I don't really like, that's not really a thing so much for me anymore. But one thing I took from my training was how to deal with, how to work with clients, like more of like gaining a rapport and how to speak to people. And one of the things that I still do, and I probably do this with friends, and is motivational interviewing. So basically, just when someone's expressing something to you, talking about a struggle they have, you reflect back to them what they said. Kind of like if they tell you a bunch of things, you kind of see what the bottom line is or the main idea, and you say it back to them for clarity. So I still do that with folks where, I'm like, oh, okay, so what you're saying is this. I would say that's probably the main thing that I still use from my training in nutrition, and meeting people where they're at. That was a good thing to always keep in mind.
Interesting. I'd not heard of the term motivational interviewing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's used mostly in therapy, like in counseling. But because I was studying holistic nutrition, a lot of that work is it's not therapy, but food is rather intimate. So things can get a lot of emotions are involved. So there's, of course, I'm not counseling because I'm not a counselor, but it kind of had that aspect to it. Because a lot of people are coming to you for they may have like an eating disorder or something like that, and not that I would be diagnosing anybody with an eating disorder, but just like supporting people, and because that's such a tender subject, you want to like treat it gently and talk to people a certain way and meet them where they're at. Because a lot of folks will, which I know you're probably familiar with, they take up a topic and then they're just like going just like, yeah, just so enthusiastic about it, and they become preachy and they don't leave space for people's humanity. So that's always the thing that I try to keep in mind is like knowing that there's more depth to people than what they're showing me.
Yeah, no, what you just described is like something I rant about to myself probably like several times a day. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, that phenomenon is very, very real.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say you came to Portland in 2013.
Mhm.
Yeah, the thing I always ask, like, any transplants is why Portland?
I had a friend who lived here already, who was from Chicago, and um, the funny thing is, the season of Project Runway. There's a
Mhm.
season of Project Runway years ago where one of the contestants, one of the designers, was from Portland. And whenever they do the little vignettes and they show where people live, and they're just like all the B-roll, they're like biking past their house and all that. I was like, what is this place? It looks like a magical small town that's not a small town. It just intrigued me the way everything looked. The vibe of it seemed drastically different from Chicago, which is a very urban area. So that intrigued me. Like that was the first like intrigue with Portland. I was like, huh, I'm gonna go to this town one day. And then my friend moved out here, um, and I came to visit her, and I liked it so much, and I liked the sense of community that she had, that I was like, okay, I'm moving here, and I moved here 6 months after that.
Hmm.
So it was just I needed new surroundings, and having a friend who already lived here just, made me feel more comfortable.
Yeah, it's interesting, the community aspect because, like, on one hand, especially just as Black people out here, it can be very isolating. But then
Yeah.
also, I think because of, I think that either leads you, especially like if you grew up here, to like go to other places or just to like find sort of like, I guess, micro communities, something like that.
Yeah.
Even more
Yeah.
so because other people are also going through it. And then you sometimes just find like, oh, wow. Like, it may be like a small group, but like it actually feels like something.
Yeah. It feels robust. I will say that because I grew up in like an all Black neighborhood in Chicago, that moving here, it was like I had this surplus of like, this sounds so weird, but like surplus of like Blackness, or like Black culture that, my friend who already lived here, she's not Black. I mean, she's brown, but she's not Black. And so I was around like, yeah, white folks, but it didn't really hit me as in like, oh my gosh, where are all the Black people? Just because I was around, I grew up in that so richly that I think it didn't feel like a need immediately, So it was okay that the first communities I was a part of were like these creative communities, but it wasn't a lot of Black folks in them. But I was just all like, I'm just trying to get to know people, So it didn't feel, I was okay. But I did think it was strange that I didn't see like Black folks at like the businesses, like where I lived around. I remember calling my mom and I was like, you're the first Black person I've talked to in like a week. And the thing is, I was living in Southeast, like inner Southeast. So all these things make sense as to why I wasn't surrounded by a lot of Black folks. But then that desire to be around more Black folks started to become stronger as I started to get more grounded just in the city and felt like I lived here. Because for the first couple of years, I felt like I was on an extended vacation. Like it didn't feel like home yet. And once I was like, okay, I feel like this is home, I needed like a little something different. Like there needed to be like a shift.
Yeah, I mean that tracks. We started the interview off kind of talking about just your background in going to nutrition school, but when did you decide to become like a full-time artist?
Whew. In 2020.
2020? Okay.
Right in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, like, which a homie would say in season 1 of the pandemic. I was working a part-time job, and then so that was like half of my income, and the other half of my income came from doing music. And I realized I just felt I was over it. I loved the people I was working for, but I was over spending so much of my hours helping somebody else live their dream. And I realized if I'm gonna just be getting by, I can do that by myself. I don't need to be attached to an employer. And there was a lot of COVID relief funds and all that. So I just felt like I could do that, like I could finally step out and say, okay, I'm going to do creative things from now on. And I'm very proud of myself that it's now 2023 and I'm still doing it full time, but it's not easy. I mean, that it's not easy. Yeah.
And was there any you kind of talk about the circumstances? Was there any moment where you, just for lack of better terms, felt like it's just really the confidence to step out and say, this is where I'm gonna, put all my eggs in the basket, income wise?
Yeah, well, I don't even think I was mostly thinking about the income. I just wanted most of the hours in the day to not be me working for somebody. But I remember had lockdown, and then I wasn't working for a few months. And then my job called me back, and my boss was picking, because I ride public transportation, and I didn't feel comfortable getting on public transportation at that time, and hadn't been on it since the pandemic started. And so he would pick me up to take me to work. And then at one point he's like, oh, I can't pick you up anymore. And that made me not feel that great. And then one weekend I went like July 4th weekend of 2020. My friend invited me out to Thai Valley on this land she had been staying on to where she was going to have like a residency. And she's like, just come out and be on the land. And I think just being there and the land is really special. And it just, I didn't go back to work after that. I sent an email. It was like, I'm not coming back. I love y'all, but I'm not coming back. I don't know, something about just taking that time, those few days, just something clicked in my brain. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
I feel that. Like I'm not sure if it was well, it definitely wasn't exactly the same for me, obviously, but like I do remember when I decided like I'm gonna take, just take a shot on myself. It definitely came, I think, either during or right after a vacation. And then just
Right.
just coming back to the office and being like, nah.
Yes.
I have there's an opportunity also, just journalism money is kind of like terrible. So
Right.
it's very much also like circumstantial. But yeah, just coming back to the office after a vacation, being like, I, I can do something else. I could.
Yes, yes. It's the taking those days away from work where you're like, gosh, wow, me just doing things for myself feels so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like you have wear a lot of different hats as far as just being an artist. But again, I just want to start on the music aspect. Again, just because like, I've seen Brown Calculus a number of times. I'm again kind of just going back to that interview with Isabeau, where you had I feel like you were talking about something about people sometimes not, knowing where to like dance at certain shows and stuff like that. And which honestly for me, as someone who's a bit rhythmically challenged, it kind of like it works out.
Yes, yes, yes. You just lean into it. You lean into it.
I don't know. I remember like I remember seeing y'all at Rom Tom's, like what was it? I want to say for like a Menta's going away show,
Uh-huh.
whatever that was. And I say it's now just like time wise because like the Oscars are this weekend, and I remember it distinctly because it was on the same night like the slap happened, and like in
Oh,
between songs of the show, I'm just talking with my friends like, "Oh, did you see Twitter's going crazy?" But then I just remember like during the set, just like having literally getting like lost in some like existential like moment for like a solid like 5 minutes, and it's like I don't know exactly what to call what just happened, but that really just happened. And like all this time I've been thinking about this ridiculous viral slap moment. Y'all just took y'all actually took me out of that.
yes.
But
Yes, yes. I love that. It's funny because that you mentioned the thing about me saying that people don't know how to dance to our music because Dre, my bandmate, he just sent me a story on Instagram today of like I think it was like what how math rock bands expect us to dance to their music. And it was someone doing a cultural dance, but their feet were just moving so like fast. And the music was, just like syncopated and just like some really strange rhythm. And I was like, yep, that's how that's how people expect to dance at our shows. They don't know what to do. But it's funny because the rhythms are so like the time signatures are so like complicated that because Dre is like a genius that when I write, if we're not if I'm not there with him when he's making the beat, if he like sends me things, I'm like, whoa, this is okay. So the way I sing is because I'm trying to get in where I fit in within those rhythms.
that was funny.
Yeah. Sometimes folks are like, oh, it sounds like, I mean, we do a lot of improvisation now, but a lot of our songs that are just like written, people are like, wow, did you improv that? I'm like, no, I wrote that way, but I had to like make sure I was writing the beat. which is sometimes like a little behind or a little in front of it.
Yeah. In yeah, I think in one of the interviews, you kind of described it, at least described Brown Calculus as cosmic jazz black excellence. Am I getting that right? Or
Yes. Yes.
okay.
It's so hard because I feel like we don't have a genre, but that's like when I say that, I think then people just understand what that
Mhm.
means. Because I feel like we're genreless. But a lot of our inspiration, our foundation is jazz and how we came together in our friendship before we started making music was because of jazz, because listening to Sun Ra. And also just the word jazz, like I have so many feelings about the jazz community and how some folks don't want to like move past like the way jazz has always sounded. They
Mhm.
made these jazz standards. They made like, okay, jazz is supposed to sound this way. And I'm like, no, jazz was created as it's a what does Sunrise say? It's a response to what Black folks are going through at a certain period in time. So there's no way that we can still, like that jazz should still sound the same way that it did in the 50s. But
Right.
it cracks me up when people are so like those hip hop heads who are like, we're losing real hip hop, like there's jazz heads like that. And it's annoying.
Yeah. I don't really want to hear actually before I don't want to go fully into my rant with
Right. No,
interview.
I was like,
But
I almost said something else. And I was like, I could talk about this stuff all day.
but I'm curious, like as far as just like because I always feel like there's this like push and pull, especially as far as like navigating genre, because on one hand, like you said, like you're genre-less in terms of like the music you're making, but then there's like the marketing and promotion aspect and
Yeah.
how the venue is going to describe you to people. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I, I guess feel like it's a big question asking how you navigate that. But yeah, can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. We usually just tell folks so that because I think last year we played the Cathedral Park Jazz Fest, and we gave them like like a little blurb about us, and they were like, they're like, we understand, this is how you describe yourself, but can you give us like a little like more of a description for just for the marketing? And I'm like, okay. Dre always brings up a good point. He's like, I don't give a crap about like what people call it.
Mhm.
To be honest, he's like, that doesn't bother him because he's like, I know what it is. So that's how we navigate it. It doesn't bother us too much. But I can't stand when people call us R&B or
Mhm.
soul music because we are not that. That is also it's a foundation of who we are, but that's not the music we're making. And people do that because we're Black. Somebody once called me a hip hop Bjork.
Yo. um
It was a white person,
uh,
as you can imagine.
I was like,
Hip
if
hop
we're playing
Bjork.
the game, I
We
was
don't even
guess what.
play hip hop. They just said that because I'm Black.
Mm. Yeah, that is again. I haven't seen y'all a few times. That is not where I would have gone with that. But
Exactly, exactly. So that's what it is. We kind of just like brush it off. I'm like, whatever, whatever people need to say, and then we just present ourselves to folks. We used to as a joke, but then folks started putting it, like printing it on our flyers and in articles, which we thought was hilarious. It was literally just a joke, but we would call ourselves post soul.
uh,
I just made it up.
that'd be funny to do like I don't know, do like a trailer or something with just like all the wrong hip hop Bjork,
Right?
post soul,
Post soul.
uh, described by insert whoever hears.
Right. Yeah, just the R&B and soul part. There's nothing R&B. It's just wild to me. I'm like, have these folks even heard R&B to say this? But then the thing is, I love R&B, but it's like that's not us.
I'm curious as far as like sticking with the marketing and promotion, because I feel like, again, maybe it's just for me. Again, we talked about the Abioto connection earlier, but like I feel like you all, it seems like it's also like word of mouth probably plays a little role in that at all, or is that just those of us like in the sort of like Black loose art community?
I think, you know what? I'm not sure about the word of mouth thing, though. I will. There are times where I'll be meeting someone for the first time, like a friend's friend, or I'm out and about or something at an event, and someone will ask what I do, and I tell them, and I'm just like, I'm in a band called Brown Calculus, and they're like, oh, I've heard of y'all. Then want to check you out, So that happens sometimes. So I think there is a word of mouth um, component, and or very, we're not very consumed with uh, posting things on Instagram. I mean, which I'm not saying is a good or bad thing. We should probably be doing a little bit more, but I think because we're just so chill and we really like making the art that sometimes we don't do that part too much, the marketing part.
I mean, honestly, if you can get away without having to do it as much, I recommend it. I'm a person. I'm on social media too much, and just every day I'm just like I am injecting this needle right into my eyeball just willingly.
Right. You're
I
just,
I yeah.
and we don't have like which I don't feel bad about, but there's branding. Like you go to some people's social media and there's like it's branded, there's an aesthetic, but we don't necessarily have one. And I don't feel bad about that at all. But we just like what we make, and then we share it.
So like Brown Calculus is one of your groups, correct? Or
Well, there's yes, that's the one. Me and Dre started that one together, and then I have some friends and collaborators who moved to town, like maybe like over a year ago now, um, and like more. It's so basically Be Present Art Group. My friend Roman, who moved to town recently, he leads that, and it's like this art collective, like music collective. I mean, it's a lot of things, but once he moved to town and we all got connected, um, it kind of like it created this family. So I'm a part of Be Present Art Group, but a lot of the members, like when we perform, you'll see us in like different iterations. Like Roman will always be there, but you'll see us in like different groupings, like ensembles of us. And that's been great. It's a lot of improvisation, um, rooted in just like, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, like love and liberation. Um, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's become a family. So that's the other music project that I am a part of. And the Be Present Art Group album is going to come out this spring. So that's
okay.
exciting. And there's 8 of us on the record.
Does that have
So
a
I call it
title?
Wu-Tang Clan sometimes.
Nice.
I am Ghostface, but
uh,
even my bandmate's daughter is on the album. So yeah, yeah.
and here's as far as like again, just in the different disciplines, was singing like your first thing, or and like
Yeah.
how'd you what got you into what got you into music?
Singing was definitely the first thing that I like art form that I really fell in love with. Even though when I was a kid, I was very much a visual artist, but that's not necessarily my thing too much anymore. Um, but I grew up in church, um, and like in a Black Christian church, and there's choir. I sang in the like kids choir, uh, but then my own just not singing at church, like in a choir, my like personal, this is me, I'm writing things. I didn't start writing music until I was in my mid 20s. And I'm 38 now, I'm about to be 39. Um, yeah, I would just, before that, I would just sing at home, just like some of my favorite songs. I would just sing by myself. I was too nervous to sing in front of anyone unless it was in a choir like aspect.
Mhm.
Uh, I just love the way that it made me feel. And I think when I realized that I had the ability to make some good sounds come out, it just like made me feel like I had this little like gym. I remember being at home in high school, maybe it was high school. I forget when Faith Evans song that I never knew there was a love like that song.
Right.
It came out and I would just like, be at home by myself belting it out. And then I realized I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to sing. Um, yeah, it made me feel good. And that's why I started doing it, but I didn't pursue it until I moved to Portland.
Hmm.
So I would write my little songs at home and I was content with just like writing them for myself and I would sing them to myself. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. I have an interest in being a singer. Um, and then I moved here and a friend who was a musician who had already been performing. He's like, let's start a band. And I was like, sure, why not? And it was this Brazilian band called Pop Go G. We did like covers of soul songs and pop songs, but set to Brazilian rhythms. Yeah, and I had stage fright, and from in the beginning, just singing so quietly, just like so scared, like shaking. Um, yeah, that's how I got into singing. It was a personal thing I did to myself because it made me feel good. And then moving here, a friend was like, well, let's make this a bigger thing. And I was like, wow, you can just do that? You could just start a
Yeah.
band. I think when we had our first show, I was like, whoa, how did you do that? I wasn't part of the music community in Chicago, so I didn't know how that worked. I was like, well, we got paid. Yeah, it was empowering.
Yeah, as I was saying, obviously, as far as the stage fright and the nervousness, it sounds, at least it appears as if that has gone away. Or at least you put on a
I don't
good
know.
face.
I still get nervous. But it's not like before I would just be afraid to project, to just be relaxed. I'm just like, oh, just too like tight, too worried about what people are gonna think. And now because I've been singing professionally for like 10 years, now I'm just like I could have a whole conversation with just like a regular conversation, just like chat about whatever. But I still get right before whenever the like stage manager comes and says, okay, y'all about to go on in 10 minutes. That's when I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to die. So I still get nervous. But once I'm like 2 songs in, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's like fun. I love sharing, offering this to people. It's a lot of fun and it puts me in a trance. Like it makes me feel like I'm high or something when I perform, especially with Brown Calculus. I used to have bigger expresses of like expression when I performed on stage, like I would hold the mic and do all the stuff and I'd be dancing. But now that we moved more into like soundscape and very improv heavy, I'm usually just standing there, the mic's still in the stand, I got my eyes closed. And it allows me to just feel good. Sometimes I forget that I'm on stage. Just start to go off somewhere. Yeah.
Which kind of reminds me of another part of that interview with Isabeau, where you talked about doing shows where the audience isn't there, but like thinking about it as a paid rehearsal. I really
Yes.
love that line.
That's our
Could you
thing, pay rehearsals.
could you expound on that a little bit?
Yes, of course. Well, we just love making music, right? Like it fills us up. It makes us feel happy. It helps us share whatever messages we want to share with folks. You know, it's a spiritual practice. And because we just love it, it doesn't feel like a chore. So if you have a show and there's not a lot of people in attendance, we're like, okay, whatever, but we still like doing this and we're still getting paid regardless. So we still gonna, there could be, I mean, this hasn't happened before. There could be one person in the room and we will give like a true performance to that one person. There could be nobody in the room and we still gonna go all in. That which happens with when we have sound checks, we will usually not, sometimes we won't check a song that we're gonna play. We'll just like do some improvisation. And we get so caught up in the sound check sometimes where we're like, whoa, well, that was good. Maybe we went too hard. You know, we just love making music with one another that we're just always ready. And the reason I say the paid rehearsal thing, I like to tell other artists that who are just starting out so they won't feel weird about if a show is not attended well. It's like, guess what? You still getting paid. It's something you like to do, so just still give it your all.
Yeah, and like I said, I just love that framing, just because like I used to, I used to cover more shows and stuff when I was in writing for the Scanner, and we out here for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be at a lot of places where you know not that many other people in the audience besides me. And I'd see how different. It's always interesting. Also, I have some friends who are in stand-up, so I go to a lot of those shows as well. And it's just always interesting watching how people, you know, how people react to the crowd, how people react to the lack of crowd.
Yeah.
Do you get deflated? Do you change things? Do you? I don't know. I've seen some wild meltdowns.
Oh
Uh,
no, I've never seen that. Oh, bless that person.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
But
I can imagine for stand up, that's a whole different situation if there's nobody in the room. You know, it's kind of like, I mean, everything is a exchange of energy, but I just feel like stand up, whoa, yeah, I can't imagine if there's nobody in the crowd. You're like, laughter is what is feeding.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I will say this though, is like watching certain people who, I don't know, especially with stand up, why like going to like certain, showcases where you see someone working out their material for like 5 weeks in a row and watching the people, there's something weirdly empowering about, well, actually, maybe empowering isn't the word, but kind of like inspiring about watching people who like bomb, but they just keep coming and they keep trying to like figure it out or not
yes, I
figure it
love
out and
that.
just do that. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you heard me the way I sang early on, like, you know, you'd be like, okay, I used to go off key, you know, pitch, like, you know, my voice sounds, yeah, you just gotta keep, you just gotta keep going. I've hit the wrong note like before, just loud into the microphone, and woo, those moments are make your face turn red. You just wanna melt into the ground, but you keep going.
And you survive. You
Yeah.
go on to do the next show. You learn.
And it shows people your humanity. Like, I love when I don't think I've had to do this before. Actually, maybe once. But like you start a song and if you mess up or if you were in the right headspace, you're like, let's start that over. I love that. I remember I saw eBay some years ago, maybe like 2015, 2016 or something, like when they first like really came out with their music and um they were using a looper and the loop was off and they're like, okay, wait, it like stopped cleared it, like, okay, we could do better than this. And that's real. Like, it's live looping is difficult. It's a lot of pressure. But I love seeing people be like, no, I can do better than that. I'm gonna start the song over. Yes, do. Yep, you're right. Start the song over. We didn't come here for perfection. Or at least I don't go to shows for perfection.
Yeah, it's like part of, I don't know, in a weird way. I'm like again with like writing and stuff, I get into like narrative and everything, but sometimes it becomes just like part of the story. I remember seeing one particular like a particular artist who he was doing a show like right after a big death in the family, and yeah, it was like the first time performing a song dedicated to that family member,
Woo.
and yeah, it was rough, and it wasn't. I haven't asked him how he felt about it, but you know I look at it like what that song turned into, and then the video and the reception it got, like when it got like fully like released and produced and all that, and it just, again, there's something being like, yeah, I was there in that audience, seeing like when you did this the first time, and like it was a
Yeah.
emotional messy moment. But it was something beautiful about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely does. I being witnessed in your grief is important. Um, there's a medicine person named Akua Adisa, Black medicine person, who leads grief sessions that I've been doing since 2020, and they just talk about the importance of being witnessed when you're grieving. So yeah, it was and I'm sure the crowd was probably like, "Dang, yeah, I'm feeling for this person." Like, you know, just showing people's humanity because we're not robots.
uh, Now, speaking of performing, in terms of I guess just for those of us, like, we're in the crowd, we just we come to the show and we see a person on stage, and we're like, oh, that person just showed up, put on the show. But like, you just talk about some of the stuff that like goes into whether it be just like the production of a given performance, sort of like things you've, I guess, like learned or picked up just to like really make the experience an experience. Does
Uh,
that make sense?
yeah, the way that I've written things has changed a little bit, um, or the way that I approach music since it's become like my career. It's that's changed things some. Um, but one of the most important things I've learned since making music and then sharing it with the public is just the importance of, I mean, this is in all aspects of our life, but truly in music, I like had to have a talk to myself. And it's still something I'm working on. It's just like really having genuine like intention behind what you're doing, and because people will feel it when you are sharing something for a reason, or if it's coming from a place of uh just your like your authenticity. Because, and I say this because I'm a very intuitive musician. Like, I grew up singing in church, but in the church I went to, there's no sight reading, there's no music classes. I didn't like learn. I can't read music, and um so I noticed that the way I was writing songs, at first I would like write songs like, oh, it's going to be about this, and then it started to morph into, I got real comfortable with improvisation. So then me and Dre would jam, and that's how the songs would come. I would just improvise a song, and then I would listen back, and sometimes I would just go with exactly how I improvised it. And that was starting to feel really good. And then after a while I'm like, okay, this is good, and I need to also lean back into writing things, like really sitting down and having like a concept, um just because it gave me like the intention gives you like a roadmap, you know, it like helps you navigate. You understand why you're doing the thing that you're doing. And yeah, with intention, I just feel like people they receive it better when they know you coming from a solid place. Yeah. Cause a lot of me being a musician is just something that's just been natural, you know? And I'm in a place now where uh I want to be more disciplined in, you know, like it's like, oh great, natural talent is cool. And how am I developing this? You know, I don't want to give people half-ass things just because I thought something sounded cool. I mean, that's also fine sometimes, but I think it just means more to me. Like I can tell when I'm not all the way in something. Yeah. My bad. That was long winded.
Oh no. Uh, yeah. On that note, do you have any particular favorite venues that you like performing at?
Hmm. You know, I don't think I have a favorite in town, as odd as that is to say. I really like, I will say, performing at Revolution Hall, I like the sound quality on stage, um, and the way that we were taken care of. So I really liked that. That was the first time we would ever like walk to a stage, you know, where you're backstage and
Mhm.
someone's like, okay, are you ready? This way. And they walk you to the, you know, like walk me onto I'm like, that's never happened in my life where I'm getting like escorted to the stage because
Mhm.
someone came and got me to escort me. Um, what are some other places? We also haven't been playing very regularly um, anymore. Uh, and that's really, to be honest, because people don't want to offer the money that we request.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, gosh, I'm over here thinking like, I used to really like performing at Mississippi Studios. It's just been a minute since we were there, but they also just would take care of us very well there too. Um, hmm, yeah, I would like to perform at a Black-owned venue. I mean, we did get to perform at Soleil's when it was still open, but yeah, I hope that in the future my favorite venue will be a Black-owned one.
Mhm. And to that point, as far as like, I think just so many of these things come down to the money and economics.
Yeah,
Like, you know, I mean, it's almost kind of like a running joke as far as like people trying to like pay you an exposure and
yes.
and shit like that. But
Like they say, like how many exposures does it take to pay my rent?
all right. But yeah, like when we talk about just like the costs that come with, you know, even never mind like as far as like your worth, as far as just like your performance itself and the craft itself, but just like the cost in putting on a show. Can you just talk a little bit about those?
Yeah. Most of the shows that we do, we don't produce. So we don't typically have to, you know, like spend money.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. That's most of the shows we're like invited to do it. So we don't have to worry about those things. Um, but or and um in I think sometimes people forget that like venues forget and fans forget, just people forget that us making music is goes beyond than just the performance. Like you're not just the compensation is not just for you seeing us on stage. It's for the rehearsals that we've had for like a month leading up to this point. You know, it's the gas, you know, the drive to the thing. Um, yeah, there's so much prep, you know, to you know, maybe there was meetings with like the venue or meetings with the other people on the bill if you're doing like a special performance and um yeah. So more than I see a cost outside of it, it's like we just put a lot of time in that people don't see. Like first we had to write the song. Then we had to rehearse the song. Now we have to go to a venue and we have to get there, sound check. We have to get there like 3 hours, 4 hours before we perform. And then if you're like, if it's not, if you don't have enough time after sound check to go home before the show starts, you've now been there for several, hours. It's just like you're around, you're at the venue for a long time. Mm-hmm. So even though it doesn't cost us money, it's like time's ticking. It's like, dang, we've been here for 5 hours now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like time is, time is currency. Like,
yeah,
dealing, I don't know. I say this to someone like I don't consider myself a performer. Like I go to things, I'll get on stage with a microphone and ask people questions and whatnot. But also, that doesn't stop me from having people, come up after the show and this. Well, we're all different in terms of our social ability, but you have people say some crazy stuff to you.
Yeah, they do. Who they do? Like call you hip hop Bjork. Yeah. You know what folks used to do? They used to be so rude. They don't do it anymore. Folks used to ask us if we wrote our music. They would ask Dre, "You made those beats?" Or ask me, "You wrote the songs, originals?" And I wonder if they ask white folks that.
Yeah. The patience, I imagine.
Ooh, something I don't think folks who are musicians who perform, what folks don't realize, and it's been a thing that I've been trying to address in my life the past like year or so, is the aftercare of performing. And because it can be jarring sometimes. You've poured out all this energy, right? And then when you're done, then maybe there's people who want to come and speak to you. And then meanwhile, these are usually people that aren't your friends. And as you're standing talking to all these people, then the lights are coming on, your friends are leaving. So you didn't get to spend time with the people that you wanted to spend time with. And now the venue is empty and I have to go home. And it is I can't put a finger really on the feeling. It can sometimes make me feel a little drained or void, even though I really love performing, if I don't have a plan in place about what I want to do after I get off stage, I'll be in that space. Me and Dre used to be in another band called Tribe Mars, and usually when I'm like around calculus, I have my cousin who's our manager, and we have some other homies who would sell our merch. So it would always be like a unit. But with Tribe Mars, we didn't have that. And so I would go perform, right? Singing all these songs. And then, right, often, if I don't want to spend money on Lyft, I'm going to take public transportation. So now I've just been like dancing, giving all this energy, doing this. And then like an hour later, I'm on TriMet. It's like ding, just like quiet, looking out the window. It's wild. It's jarring.
That sounds like a movie sequence almost.
Right. For real, where was all this? And now I'm just quietly sitting on a bus, staring out the window. And I just like did an exchange of all this energy with people. So that is what I've been working on, is like telling friends now, hey, after this show, I would like to do this. So don't leave, so they know. And I'm not just left talking to strangers who I know are like, just want to say they enjoyed it, or, that the music resonated, which is great. But yeah, working aftercare for a performance is very important.
Yeah. I'm glad to use that like term too, just because like I've mostly heard it in like dating circles and like
yes.
So
yeah
like, but actually, like that makes not just telling you something you just said back to you, but like it makes so much sense. Like again, as someone who is not up there dancing and singing and doing anything, but like I get tired, trying to just again, just like manage, even just like manage public conversations. So I can only
Right.
imagine.
Yeah. But I will say Be Present Art Group, who I love being a part of Be Present Art Group so much, because there's like 7 of us. Um, when we're done performing, because there's so many of us, people usually want to do something afterwards. And that makes me feel really good because that hasn't always been my experience since I've been performing. So it's like, build you back up. So it's nice to be part of a bigger group. Um yeah, and Be Present our group is like all Black folks. So I just feel like held, and there's understanding within it. So yeah, when we perform, like afterwards, I'm always like fine. Yes, yes.
So I probably want to get beyond the music questions at some point, but you did bring up just one merch, but then also your manager Rashonda,
Mhm.
and shout out to Rashonda.
Yes.
But yeah, you just talk about as far as that aspect in terms of again, I guess it's kind of back to like marketing as well, but then just like as far as like navigating those logistics. And again, I know it's something you kind of talked about in that Isabel interview we talked about earlier, where I think you're saying something like just even what's it like daily like production texts and stuff like that. Like, is that still a thing you're doing, or
Oh,
mm,
like what was I talking about? Probably just, I mean, we have a group thread, uh,
mm,
the 3 of us, like me, Dre, and Rashonda. And that's where we discuss like um, emails. That's where we have like meetings, or not have meetings, but like schedule our meetings. Um, which I'm laughing right now because I haven't deleted that group thread since we started it, and it's years long.
mm.
It goes back to like 2017, and I've never deleted anything. Surprised my phone still works. Um, um, yeah, so we have that thread where we talk a lot about how we're going to move forward, and um, yeah, it's not like um, me and Dre don't live close, so it's just a good place to like chat about things or how we want to approach something, decisions that we need to make. Um, and we don't perform as much as we used to, so some things have like mellowed out as well. But what I would like to do is for us to start producing like more of our own shows. Um, my bad, I don't know if I answered your question.
uh, I was just kind of like about the well, I was use another reference. So I have another artist friend acquaintance who, when they were describing kind of like what their days look like, it's like, yeah, I get in the studio with my business partner, and we're
Ah,
spending most of that time like trying to figure out marketing ideas or ways to like crack the algorithm. And part of me, just as a human being, is like, ah, that 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 sounds kind of like I get it. Also, it sounds
yeah.
kind of kind of deflating.
We don't necessarily do that, like, and because I don't only do music, my days are different. But I'm working on a solo project, and I do have like once a week I meet um with my collaborator to work on the project. So I do typically have like very regular, like on this day I do this. And like when when Dre lived closer, but he lives like they live on a farm now. Before that we had very specific days that we would meet up, like twice a week to jam, to develop new songs. So that's what was happening up until just like recent times. It's just like twice a week rehearsals to discuss like how we want to move forward with something, and just write. But now it's just, we've over these past couple years, our lives have changed. He has a family. They live on a farm and stuff now. So we just have to like get the pivot and how we approach doing our music.
Yeah. Such is life. Such is life.
Yeah. I'm not like one of those people. I forgot what documentary that was. Dude, just like this producer, he just like wakes up, he got out the bed, and then all his music stuff was just like right across on the desk from his bed, and he just gets started. That's not my life.
Sounds stressful.
Yeah, that's not my life at all. I do a bunch of things before I even like start doing like my work.
So you talk about sort of being kind of more of a visual artist as well earlier, and you do work in wardrobe styling, collages, production design, and I believe most recently on the film Mother of Color, if I'm correct.
Yes.
But
which is a beautiful film. I think they're gonna have another local showing in the next couple of months. You should see it. It's a beautiful film.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely planning to. I know the second interview I did for this with Barbie Wu was also involved with that.
Oh yeah, did the casting.
Yeah. Just I didn't mean for like all these threads to tie in, but as I'm saying this now, it's like, oh yeah.
Also, we live in Portland. That's just how we go. We all just end up knowing each other.
but yeah, as far as like visual art, like what kind of like sparked your interest? What kind of got you to really taking that seriously?
You know what? I can't say that when it comes to visual art, like doing collage, I can't say that I've taken it seriously. And when I say that, I mean it's more of just like something I enjoy, like a passion that I just do, and I share it online. And collage has just always been something I liked. I used to do like actual, like cutting things out. And then one day me and Dre, like years ago, needed to make a graphic because we wanted to post our song like on SoundCloud. And so we made one in this app. And then I just started saying like, what else can I do with this app? And I just started making collages. It's like I like detail oriented work. And it keeps my mind busy, and like it lets my imagination just like go places. So it's just something I like to do for fun. And then last year I thought about it. I was like, oh, I'm like actually I'm a visual artist. Like I had to like tell myself, like I wasn't taking it. I didn't view it as something that was like art. I'm just like, I love making these collages because it's fun and it lets me just explore like bizarre, weird things, and people just resonate with them. And then at some point, there was like Design Week a few years ago, and Juke Juke Creative was like highlighting folks, and they highlighted me like for my like collages. And I had like some PSU students reach out to me and be like, I love your work. And I'm like, what? Like you're in school for illustration and like graphic design. Meanwhile, I'm just like at home making these little things, like on an app. And I had to stop downplaying what I was doing. Yeah. So the collage work is just something I do for fun, but I've been thinking about maybe sharing it in a different way. But it isn't something I've totally jumped on yet. But people love them. I mean, I love making them. And I think some folks think it's funny that I call them collages because they're like, it's kind of like a some of my stuff, it's like an illusion. Like I make it seem like it's just one photo, but
Mhm.
I just put things together so it looks like all these like four different photos, like they really truly just were originally this one image. I think I have trickster energy, so I like doing stuff like that.
So as you're answering that, I kind of like noticed something about my own like question style and be that specifically using the term visual art kind of loosely. So I was also kind of like referring to, and you use the term I think makes more sense as far as like just like production oriented or not production,
Oh, like my
detail
yeah.
oriented work. So like for example, just again, kind of like going through the research, I didn't realize you had done like the styling for Planted for a Mentas video,
Yeah.
but also when I think about it, it's like that, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. But like, 'cause I think you definitely have, you have a style that sticks out in Portland.
Thanks.
Yeah, I do mean that as like, like that sounded weird when I said it, but like
It didn't sound
it
weird to
is.
me.
Oh,
It
okay.
didn't sound weird to me.
Okay,
No,
okay.
thanks. Yeah, that um styling is something I always wanted to do since I was a kid, right? And I didn't know what the path was because I've always just been into uh expressing myself through clothing. And I didn't know how you got into it. So I just was like, well, I guess I'll just leave that alone and won't try to explore that. I think I was a stylist assistant like twice for some very like small things in Chicago, but that was like it. Um, and then when I moved here and I started making music, uh, and just started to meet more artists, people just like the way that I dress. So they would just ask me to style their videos and things. And then I was like, wow, great, because this has always been my dream. So what you really do is you just call yourself a stylist. And then people hit you up. But yeah, people like my personal style and they like trust it. And so um yeah, that's how I got into that. And then also Dawn Jones Redstone, who's the writing director of Mother of Color, that was my first production design role. And in our meeting, I remember like our first meeting, I told her, I was like, I don't have any experience in this. I was like, I've done some wardrobe and some light work, like art direction, but I don't have any experience in this. I've done like very just small little installations on someone's stage. And she's like, oh, I don't care, but I like you. So I'm like, okay.
I mean, hey, if it's your, you don't have like quote unquote, the whatever traditional experience, but you've got proof of concept.
Yes, they were
Right.
basically right. Right. But these like, um, yeah, that's been in the recent years that I've done those two things. And now I'm doing it more, which is nice. Yeah, it feels good because I love creating worlds. Um, so doing wardrobe styling and costume design and production design is just fun to just take something apart and like, yeah, I love just creating a new space. I don't know why it's so fun. It just like is like liberating and like offers up possibilities and um yeah. So I'm grateful that those things have. I feel like the film industry chose me. I didn't choose it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be working on like um a film coming up uh that Walida Imarisha has written. It's her first film. I'm very honored to be on that project. Um, I did wardrobe on our friend Jeff Oliver, filmmaker. He has a film that's going to come out called Thirsty Thursday. It's a horror film. I did wardrobe for that last year. Yeah, just it's been nice to tap into the other things that aren't music, because even though singing was kind of like my first, like, I love this, um, dressing myself has always been a passion of mine. I don't necessarily mean that in a vain way. It's a great way of, um, for me to express myself. And I sometimes forget that, like, yeah, doing things like that is technically visual art.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, with just we haven't even talked about like all the those other things you do, but just like, is there a such thing as like a typical day then, as far as that laugh? I'm gonna guess says no, but
Yeah, my morning routine is probably the most typical like thing. Um, yeah, I start my day by usually um, chanting or meditating. I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo from Nichiren Buddhism. So I usually do that, and then do some kind of movement, stretch, make coffee, and then I'm like, okay, what meetings do I have today? Um, and if in between, if I don't have a meeting, then I'm usually planning, uh, uh, like outlining how, like my solo project, or if there's a grant I'm applying for. Um, yeah, it's not very like typical, but there's usually just some aspects of like planning planning an event, planning a project. Um, yeah, just like different iterations of that every day.
yeah, if you're just because now it's just making me think about what I love about like doing these interviews. Just like it helps me, even though again, doing talking with people who have like different crafts, but like it makes me reflect on just my own thing. I'm just like question I'd ask myself, so I'm just gonna ask you. It's like if you were just like ballparking, how much of that time tends to be spent on like some version of meetings, plannings, or correspondence?
Oh my
Like,
gosh, probably like half of it. There are days sometimes where it's like now 3 p.m. and I'm like, wait, what did I do today? And I'm like, oh yeah, I had that meeting. Then I had to send that person that.
mm,
I would say half of the day is spent, like, I mean, I don't have a meeting every day, but I also don't like to, I mean, people might find this funny, but I don't really like to work past like 3 or 4 o'clock. Um, but that's just me. So yeah, half of that time will be me. I'll be, um, it's so funny the amount of planning and admin stuff, like the stuff that's not that fun
mm.
to do. So yeah, half of my day is spent doing all that. And then I have a lot of time to just rest, read, daydream, watch a movie. Sometimes I watch a movie and work on, like, plan some out at the same time. Um, yeah. What I do have to work more into, um, my days. Sometimes I get too caught up in the planning and the dreaming and the figuring it out, that then I'm like, oh dag, did you even like work on any music this week? You know? Even though now I have, um there's once a week where I work on my project with my collaborator, uh, Elijah Jamal Asani. But other than that, I feel like I'm getting so caught up in trying to apply for the residency, trying to get the money so I can actually do this thing that I've been planning, that I'm like, dang, I didn't even spend any time doing my art. Yeah.
I feel that.
Then I'm like, what if I'm not spending my time doing my art? What am I even having to offer once I plan this thing?
It's like that balance of like where people you know, or whether it's, applying for grants or, getting, contracts and whatnot. It's like people generally, they're looking for you for, like, their interest in you comes from your art to do, whatever it is for them. But
Right.
if you don't have the opportunity to actually like do that, it's, you know, some messing up the process. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's been a bit of a struggle trying to like get back into being inspiring myself because of all the other things that we have to do. I'm like, oh gosh, I haven't. When's the last time I like went out to just, to get inspiration? That's not me doing research on a computer.
mm, yeah, I think I'm definitely guilty of confusing inspiration for just shit that frustrates me, scrolling through social
Oh my
media
gosh,
and whatnot.
yes, yes.
Like I can write an essay on this. I can write several, but I don't know. Again, I don't want to get in clog this interview with my own rants about how
That's okay, because I mean, we probably on the same page. You probably just be preaching to the choir anyway. Like we
uh,
just pontificate.
just pontificating on just so much like I feel rude saying it because it's like I does my shit inspired? I don't know, not all the time, but I just see so much uninspired expression and it's just like uh,
Yeah, and I don't want to become that person. I don't want to become a robot. Just be like cranking things out, and not spending the time to really cultivate. I can get caught up in that sometimes, like not actually spend that time because I'm worried about all the other aspects of it.
yeah. So that would actually be an amazing segue into what the last question I always ask people on this. But there is one more thing before we get there, because I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask that. In I believe 2019, you became a voting member for the Grammys. Am I
So yes.
correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, you just talk about one getting that news, and then two, like what all does that entail? Like, do you have like
Ah.
meetings, or is it just like they send you like the email with all the people and you just like check boxes?
So finding that also just want to make sure I choose my words wisely. Um, I found out that I became a voting member of the Recording Academy through an email. It was like uh, I just woke up one day and I had this email that was like, "Congratulations, you are a part of the Recording Academy." And I was like, "I didn't apply for this." And I had other friends, other musicians who also got the same email. Like we all got it on the same day. Then I learned that they had some task force before in the year leading up to when I got the email where um, they were trying to restructure, not restructure, but they wanted to get new people because the pool of the voting members was just like what you expect it to be. It wasn't a lot of black and brown folks. It was a lot of older
uh,
people, just like the same people have been doing it for a long time. So they had hired someone to take a look at what needs to be changed. And so I don't even know the process. In the email, it said that someone had nominated me. I don't know who this someone is. I may never know.
that,
Uh,
that you really still don't never
I
found
don't.
out.
No, I never found out. I don't know who it is. So okay, I consulted someone I knew who was also in the Recording Academy, and it was like, "Do you think this is like beneficial?" And they were like, "Yeah, this is what I've gotten out of it." Um, I think they were also like, because there's chapters, like regional chapters, and I think they're one of the people like on the committee. So once I just got that information from them, I was like, okay, I'll try this out. So there aren't any like meetings. There are meetings in the sense of like there's these socials that they do that I've never been to one that you can go to meet the other like musicians and industry folks in your area, but they're not required of you. But then when Grammy time comes around, like the months leading up to that, you they send you an email. They tell you that voting is open, and you like nominate people. They have a list, but then you can also just submit folks as well. It is a long list
I
of
bet.
musicians. It is. I opened that up and I was like, whoa, whoa. So it is a long process. But yeah, you get an email, you go into a database, and there's all these musicians that you choose from, or you can submit your own. Then those get dwindled down. And then there's like a second round of voting. And then that goes to the Grammys. And then there's, I think, a certain group, like a different group that then votes on those folks that were chosen, that the voting members chose. But in all honesty, I've only done it one time.
I mean, like how long? One, do you know like how many members or like how many voting members there are in total?
Ooh, actually, I don't know that information. I feel like there's like thousands.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds like quite the list.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like all these folks are submitting their people. It's just, whoo, it's a lot. It took me a while to do that voting. It's very involved. And if you do nominate people yourself, you have to provide so much information, you know. But uh I think, like, is there anything else? I just want to make sure I'm not, because also to like uh make sure I'm not speaking too much about things I'm not supposed to be speaking
Uh,
about. Just like making sure I'm not like, I don't want to share anything that I'm not supposed to. But I think all of this is actually, yeah, this what I'm telling you is fine.
okay,
Yeah.
no company secrets day. But
Yes.
but I feel that only as far as like voting once. Like I was I think someone did something similar, not the Grammys, but just, like the was it like Willamette Weeks, best new artist stuff. So, you know, I would get those for a while, but
Yeah.
also there was a point where I was just like, I'm so disconnected from like going to shows regularly and the scenes I used to cover that's like I almost feel irresponsible like submitting something to this.
No,
I
I
need to
feel
stop.
that. I got invited to vote on that once, and like not many people, and I was like, oh gosh, dang, I'm a working musician. I'm still like not knowing who the new musicians are in town.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, uh in retrospectively, I guess though, still congrats on that as well though, because it
Well,
is
thanks. It definitely was when it happened. I was like, oh, cute. And then they send you like a membership card in the mail, and it's like black box. I just keep that as a little keepsake.
uh,
But I'm sure there is like a better way that I could be like, using it to my benefit. I just didn't figure it out.
yeah. What was it? Just introduce yourself as member of the Recording Academy wherever you go.
It's funny because people will like put that on things. I'm like, well, okay, sure. I am a voting member of the, because there are also people who that time that they like sent out all these emails to all these young artists, not everybody became a voting member. Some people had a certain kind of, they were a member but they couldn't vote, so I don't know how that gets chosen.
Interesting. Interesting. So yeah, that kind of brings me again. not as good of a segue into this, but I do like to ask everyone I've been interviewing for this project as far as like, is there something that you're not involved with, but like in the wide world of art, whether it's, it could be a movie, it could be a theater play, it could be, you know, a you know, local stand-up, whatever it is that's just like, what in the world of art, again, that is not a project you're working on that's is exciting you right now?
I guess it would be, I'm like, anything the Abiyotos are doing.
I mean, that's a legit answer, but
I mean, I really mean that because they're just a force who they're just so connected to source, like connected to spirit. Everything they do is with intention. They like, they're just magical, like humans who are just feel they're so important. And I've been really excited about their mom, like Midnight, and how she stepped more into her uh like visual display of her art. And I'm using her words. Like, we were at a residency that Intizar put together um last December, and she expressed that. She's like, she was prepping for that big show they had. It's like the Forest Queen,
yeah,
at the, what is it, the Reser. Um, and she was just saying how making these costumes, making these like sculptures, that this was like really her first time stepping into that. And so it's exciting to see an elder be like, I'm finally really, I mean, she's always been an artist, but I'm like really flexing my artistic muscle. So I love that I get to witness her be in these galleries and just, oh my gosh, her costume design. I'm like, I need to hit her up, or I need some stuff made, like for the future. It's just, yeah. I've been really excited to see Midnight Abioto step into her art is wonderful. It's wonderful. And also just seeing like whenever they do anything, it's their entire family. They have group
all right.
shows. The Studio Avioto, and they just keep getting stronger and more dynamic. And um, Intizar keeps creating ways for Black folks to be connected. And so I love watching the progression. And they just moved like down the street from me, so they're closer. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, the Abiotos, um, even though, I mean, I'm sometimes involved with their art and not, but I just want to see them do even more. I'm excited to see what's next.
Yeah, yeah, that.
And when Abiotos call you and tell you they want you to do something, like, duh, you should just do it. Like Midnight, actually, I think it was December or it was November, and she texted me about the show that they had in January at the Reser, and it wasn't like, will you perform? She texted me and was like, and you're on the program for the final day. I was like, okay. Like, it wasn't like, do you want to be? It was like, you're. And I was like, oh.
uh, that's funny. But you gotta
Oh
do it.
God. Yeah. And you know what? I don't know, like, I can't name all the like specific collectives and things, but since the pandemic, I think more Black and brown folks feel like, okay, I've been waiting around to like live out my dreams. This is actually the perfect time for me to get to do my thing. So there's been a lot of like uh art collectives popping up and like new spaces for activations. And that's been cool to see. I know what Aaron Robinson just started Flower Factory, um, which is just, it's a collective where I mean, I think they're gonna be doing all kinds of things. They just had like a party the other day, but they're trying to um, restructure the way we think about the creative agencies and firms. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for Abiotos, I love you just like really shouting out Midnight, especially. And it's like I'm always, yeah, what was it at that same show? I've done a bunch of stuff, mostly with like Intezar, but like I was telling her after, well, not after the show, because kind of like you were talking about before, like so you don't have time to like connect with people,
Yeah.
like, but I sent her a message about like you didn't tell me you were like a vocalist too. Where did that come
Oh yeah,
from?
yeah. Intezar, like, yes, yes. Also, I love when she sings that song, that particular song. Like, yeah, and I love how it surprises people because she doesn't sing all the time.
It's like I've known her for 2013, 2012. It was like, what?
Yeah, yeah. Just all of them, like Kalima with her like film work and Hanifa, who's been like writing these stories, and Aisha, and her visual art, and of course Aminta, Aminta's like my sister, just anything they do, you just sign me up. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, even like right now with and starts doing a bunch of stuff around it's like Beatrice Morrow Kennedy and like so
Yes.
like the legacy of that as far as well her specifically and then just sort of like work around basically like black creative or just black community like salons and whatnot. I've just been like, yes. Like
Yes.
I also do a bunch of stuff like Imagine Black and kind of like this ongoing conversation around, when do we as like black people actually have space to dream? And then when do we have space to like dream together? And it's like
Yeah.
this is actually kind of like putting that back into motion. And well, I shouldn't say back into motion, but really putting that like conversation out in the forefront in a way that it's checking a lot of boxes while you do it, while lifting up local history, lifting up this person, putting up the house, bringing people together. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just with the Black Artist Gathering, just that project. It's just I love how Intezar moved here from Memphis, and she's just such a like the importance of local history to her just is like so like I just love that about her, that she came here like to highlight the people who are here, who are from here.
Mhm.
I love that so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I also, um, I also love what Esperanza Spalding is doing with her sanctuary.
Mhm.
Um, it's a lot about connecting to us, reconnecting to land and what's our right relationship with land and with indigenous folks. And, she also is going to in the future offer residencies on this land. And it's also like a salon kind of, situation. Um, yeah, I'm excited to see how that uh, takes off because it's still in. I mean, there's activations happening, but it's still in development, and the land's still in development. And yeah, I'm excited to see more of what she's doing with that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Vaughn, thank you again for taking the time this afternoon. Before we hop off, you know, where can people find you? But two, do you have any particular projects you'd like to either? I know we've talked about some throughout this interview, but any projects you'd like to highlight for people watching this later?
Yes. So um I am uh wait, what was the first question?
Oh, just where can people find you? The
Oh yes,
handles,
yes, the important
websites, all that
part.
good
See,
stuff.
I'm always dropping the ball on the marketing. I'm like, what? What did you ask me? People can find um my I post things on Instagram, so people can find my personal things that I share. I share a lot of my art on there and like flyers and stuff. I'm the Brown Alice, which is my stage name, even though I'm leaning into getting another stage name, which is Cosmos Dark, but that's in development. They can find me at the Brown Alice, and also at Brown Calculus on Instagram. We also have music on Bandcamp. We have a monthly subscription that folks can subscribe, and you'll get an offering, a sonic offering from us. Um, and then what I'm really excited about, I've been working on a film. Um, it's like a performance art film uh, about my grandmother. Um, we're editing it right now. I made it with my friend Michael Romero, and um, I read Bell Hook's book, Sisters of the Yam, and in that book she talks about how Black women have been we have been given a lot of space to be a lot of people. We're often viewed as a caregiver, as everyone's everything, but nothing to ourselves, is what she said. And a lot of this comes from one, racism, and then also our families raising us in a certain way and being very strict because they're afraid of us experiencing racism. So they gave us a lot of these rules that didn't then allow us, it kind of stifled, other aspects of us. So reading that really got my mind turning. And I thought about my grandma, who is an ancestor now, my maternal grandmother. And she was a pastor. But like early in her life, even though she came from a religious family, she was running the streets. She was known for fighting people or threatening to fight people. And I just thought about like, she's so much more than even her congregation knew. She's so much more than like people. She became a pastor later on in life, so there was so much to her that people didn't know. And I wanted to honor that we can be Black women, can be so many things at one time. So I'm taking, or I took audio from clips from my grandmother's sermons, because I have 7 cassettes of her preaching in the 90s, which I'm like probably sitting in the crowd for most of these. And then the visual is me in non-religious situations, but where this clip of what she's saying applies, and I'm lip syncing her words. So I'm editing that right now. It's shot on film, like Super 8. And it's called Feast of the Tide, which is kind of going to be like an ongoing thing for me. And yeah, I'm really excited to share that with people, because this is really my like first time being like, here is my art. Like, that's me. Of course I have a collaborator, but it's not me and my bandmate. It's like, here is a thing I conceptualized and someone was helping me like do it, but like, here's a message that I have to share with people. So I'm really excited to put it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Me too, because we're still editing it. But yeah, and then my hope is I'm applying for a grant to have an event to premiere it. So yeah.
Well, yeah, good luck on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vaughn Kimmons, thank you again for taking the time, and yeah, continue the great work.
Thanks.